IVM.
Hey everybody, welcome to another week on the IVM Podcast Network. If you aren't following us on social media, please do. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. I'd like to thank our sponsors this week, Paytm Money. As we go into God knows what week of the lockdown, we've been trying to make sure that we get as much content out to you as possible. We had some interesting episodes in the last week. Cyrus Says we had Angad Singh Ranyal on it. That was a fun episode to listen to. On the Filter Coffee podcast, we had Taslima Nasleen and Arunav Sinha on that. That was another great conversation. Karthik Srinivasan joined Varun on Advertising is Dead. And guys, look for Pratik Oswal on Paisa Vaisa podcast with Anupam Gupta. That was another great episode. I'd also like to let people know that the show that we're doing with Mr. Ashish Vidyarthi, Begin the Journey, is now going to be releasing 3 times a week. So do check that out. I'm sure you'll enjoy that. And let's get started with your show.
Welcome to a special episode of the Geek Fruit Podcast. I'm Tejas, and with me today, and when I say with me, of course, he's somewhere else in his own home, Jishnu. Hi, Jishnu.
Hello. It is a home.
What? Yes, it is a home. You're in your home, I'm in my home, and yet we are podcasting.
How's your home doing? Is it still sweet? Has it
It's quite sweet.
Fatigued? It's been a month now.
It's sweet before and sweet after. It's
what?
Oh no, it's not sweet home sweet.
What? What does it
it's
even
home
mean?
before sweet and home after sweet. That's what I meant.
This analogy has
like a home
this
sweet home.
analogy has just gone for a toss. Let's move on.
Yes, you're
Let's
right.
move on.
Okay,
Nobody
so we are safe in our homes, but we're still podcasting, and since there's not that much that is being released, at least in the movie area, the movie business, there is stuff that is coming out on television. There is stuff that is coming out on the various platforms. However, it's time we revisited a special sub-series of the Geek Fruit podcast called, very non-creatively, OST. What does OST stand for?
Original soundtrack. Now,
That's right.
Here's something to think about. Would you consider silent films before we had the talkies, which only had musical scores as accompaniments, and then giant slates on the screen that told you what dialogue was being said that you couldn't hear? Would you count those as movies with an OST? Because then I don't think there's any movie without an OST, is there?
Well, yeah, unless it's got no music in it and it's just dialogue,
which are like only college.
Wait, are you counting
films.
soundtrack? No, when we say original
that's what I mean.
soundtrack,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's true.
That's exactly what I mean. Like, it is an original soundtrack because there was a score written for these movies that had to be played in time with the film, right? When the guy does the thing, that's when the instrument does the thing. Which is not dissimilar to these days, which is when the Suicide Squad does their move, turn on pop song. Like, it's the same concept. It's just that now we're talking about a song versus a score. But it's still...
So movies without music don't have an OST, is what you're saying.
But there aren't movies without music. There aren't too many.
I'm saying if there were. You said college films.
Yeah, besides your student film in college, when you couldn't get copyrights to music and stuff. Besides those, no, right? There aren't. Yeah. They don't exist. They don't do those. Every movie.
No, they don't do those because music is about as important. Sometimes you can have a movie without dialogue.
I'd say it's more important
to have a movie without music.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. It's more important than the thing you're looking at.
Perhaps, yes, I agree. However, this edition of the sub-series OST, and we've done a few of these. We've talked about SFX, we've talked about soundtrack, the actual OSTs, which are the great accompanying albums, companion albums that came out with movies, especially in the 90s and before that. Yeah. We've talked, pretty much, and early 2000s. We've talked about science fiction music, movies that, or soundtracks that go excellently with sci-fi. But this edition, we were going to talk about musicals. Now, one of the films that was supposed to release this year, but now allegedly has been pushed back, was Steven Spielberg's edition, his adaptation of West Side Story. Mm-hmm. West Side Story obviously being the classic Broadway, adaptation, like Broadway. Well, technically it's a Romeo and Juliet story, but done in song. and they changed the Capulets and Montagues into Sharks and Jets. It's got a great selection of songs, and it was supposed to star, Ansel Elgort and Rita Moreno and a bunch of people.
Ansel is
But now it's been shelved.
is Ansel Han?
Baby Driver.
Oh, Baby Driver. Sorry. What was Hans?
That's
what was his name?
Han's name is Alden Ehrenreich.
It was one of them is.
You can't say it. You can't say it without that. Anyway, so yeah, those were one of the, and I was kind of looking forward to that, obviously because it's Spielberg.
Have
but
you
also
seen
because West Side Story?
Have you seen West Side Story?
I've never seen it. No, I don't. I have never seen it on stage.
Yeah.
What musicals are we going to be talking about today, Jishnu? Because we have to make a distinction because there are a lot of categories of musicals. There is the Disney musical, which are musicals that are written just for screen, that have not been adapted from stage. Then there are jukebox musicals, as you pointed out before we did this episode. Are we going to count jukebox musicals? Does Mamma Mia, Here We Go Again, or Mamma Mia at all, count?
Yeah, so I say let's just do ones that films based on live action plays, based on theatrical plays only, as opposed to like a Beauty and the Beast movie based on the previous movie. As opposed to Mamma Mia 2, which is based on nothing, but Mamma Mia 1 is based on the theatrical piece.
So we're not talking original musicals for film. We're talking about musicals which were originally on stage and then were adapted to film.
Cats, yes.
Like
however,
Cats. Okay. Have you seen Cats?
No. However, we can't count School of Rock, which is the opposite, which is a movie made into a musical.
Yeah,
right.
Or Pretty Woman,
or like Mean Girls, whatever. But speaking of Mean Girls, so I just looking up for stuff for this episode, I went to Playbill.com and I found that the pre-production, the list of movies not in pre-production. Well, currently in pre-production is 3 movies. In filming is just the 1. And then in post-production is 3, of which is West Side Story is included, as is In the Heights, which is now delayed by a year.
In the Heights, which is delayed by a year. Oh, no. So upset.
And one called Everybody's Talking About Jamie, which I'm not familiar with. But their in development list is gotta be, Jesus, at least like 20 movies. And there's one movie that stood out to me, which I didn't know about, which I'm surprised to see how excited I was when I saw this.
Which is? It's Mamma Mia, Here We Go Again.
Nope. You're not far though. It is a musical about a band.
Jukebox?
It's a jukebox. It is a jukebox. It's by HBO of all people, which is interesting.
Oh, I'm already taking it seriously.
American Idiot.
Oh yeah. So that one did really, really well on Broadway.
Now I'll put it to you like this. This is a very random tidbit from my time in college. When I was in college, my senior year, after I graduated from college, I ended up working at the university still for about a year and a half. And I formed a band in college with a bunch of faculty members. So the band was a 6-piece band. Everybody except me in the band had a PhD. And
this is Thunder Junk?
This is Thunder Junk, yes. And so everybody in the band was like, I think the youngest guy after me was like in his early 40s. So it was like, I was a bit of an odd duck, but it was hilarious and great. Anyway, point is, we played a gig at my year-end senior gala, which is like the end of the year big bash for the seniors on their way out. And so we played that gig, and it was a great time. It was a party. It was basically hilarious because, like, imagine, you going for your end of year thing, and it's your freaking history teacher on stage, killing it, playing Led Zeppelin on bass, really freaking well. Amazing. And it's just like, what the hell?
Nice.
Anyway, so we got a bunch of guest performers, one of which was my favorite theater professor, who was my director in a bunch of plays. And he said, can we please play Give Me Novocaine from the American Idiot musical? And I was like, what? He's like, yeah, dude, I'm the theater professor. I should probably sing a theater song. So can we please do Green Day's Give Me Novocaine?
So basically just do Green Day song.
Pretty much. And I mean, like, it was hilarious and it was good and it was fun. But I hadn't seen the play. But then after that, I went out and I got the soundtrack and I was very, very impressed. Because
it's a great soundtrack. Because I mean, of course, I've not seen it either.
That album alone is pretty great. Like, it was the last Green Day album that I really enjoyed.
It's better than the actual.
in my well, it may or may not be because I really
it's cooler. Like, it's got some cool little additions. Obviously, all the transitions, like just the production of that album.
It's got more.
It's Broadway.
It's got more time put into the minutia of the thing besides the actual songs. But I'm excited for this movie purely based on the Jesus of Suburbia music video. That music video alone, for a 9-minute song,
the actual music video.
Yes, not the play. I've seen like their Tony performances and stuff. So I've seen the kind of vibe they're going for, which is vaguely like,
it looks great.
It was like a mix.
It's very Rent.
Yeah, I put it as a mix between Rent and We Will Rock You. I don't know if you've seen the. Have you seen the We Will Rock You like footage and stuff?
My school did it after I left, and
oh my god,
yeah. I know I missed the chance to be in it. Jesus. I would have loved to be that. But yeah, so they did it. So I've seen just like my school always did really, really big musicals, and because they didn't have the rights, had to change the names, and would do a half decent job, but I feel sometimes would butcher it like a little bit.
So what is We Will Rock You?
So when I was in school, it was just called Rock You, and for when we did Lion King, it was called Circle of Life, and I was in the choir for that one, but it was fun. It was just fun, dude. It was just like silly fun. Yikes. But yeah, man, both of us are I mean, all three of us, I'd say, even Dinkar, all of us are big musical theater fans.
Has Dinkar been on stage? Has he done the theater?
I mean, like, I don't know if he's done theater, but he's definitely, I mean, obviously he's played on stage a lot. And,
I know, but I just want to know if he's done, was he a dramatics boy?
Acting?
Yeah, is he a dramatics boy?
We'll find out in the next edition.
Yeah, he's a dramatics boy now.
We
need to find out his backstory.
That's true. And I know we've always kind of been attracted to this genre because, you know, it takes two things that we love, which is great storytelling and obviously some sick music. And you know, I feel like the world is catching up to that idea even more so now. I feel like there may have been a lull, you know, like in the I'd say early on with Gene Kelly and all these guys. And that was like a primary way. Like movies like La La Land were like tributing that era of films, right? Which was just about the Hollywood and, you know, the big pizzazz and that kind of, you know, storytelling. But then I felt like there was a bit of a drop off, and then it was just, you know, just secluded to obviously to Broadway and West End, etc. And now after movies, like I've just been watching, like, you know, things like The Greatest Showman and all these soundtracks doing amazingly well. Like The Greatest Showman is definitely not the greatest musical. It's not even The Greatest Showman. It's an average movie. But even for someone who thought it was an average movie, the music, especially like a couple of songs, not all of them are hits, but some of the songs were like produced like, you know, like modern songs. And I like some of the songs, and I like Zac Efron and Zendaya and obviously Hugh Jackman. So I would revisit those songs, even though I thought the movie was like absolutely average and I wouldn't be able to tell you a thing about it. But do you feel like musicals and the sheer number of musicals that are coming up in production, as you just mentioned, do you feel like they're getting into resurgence because people are more into this genre, or it's becoming more relatable, like movies like In the Heights talking about the Hispanic or Latino community, things like that?
Is it having a resurgence? I don't know. I mean, like,
there are a lot more movies being produced. There's at least 2 musicals every year.
But I think think about Cats. That's a symptom of technology with regard to all genre of film. There's just more of everything, which includes musicals.
That's also true.
I don't think musicals have like resurged in popularity or in any kind of particular way in pop culture. Like, I don't think it's more poignant now or anything like that. I don't think there's any particular needle move with regard to musicals. But you're right in that, yes, there are more being made. And so, see, like, take for instance, like everybody loves to talk about Cats. Let's look at the fact that I loved that after Cats came out and it did what it did. There was zero follow up from the star-studded cast, right? Like, it had a who's who of within the cast who did nothing for it after the fact. But then I loved that there's this one straight to camera piece that James Corden did a couple of days or a few weeks after the fact on his show, when clearly people, you know, unanimously decided this was a mistake. And most of the cast, I think almost all of them, kind of put their heads in the ground and like kind of went underground for obvious reasons. But then because he is on a TV show every single day, he can't escape the limelight, and people are
That's true.
very much aware that, hey, you're the Cats dude, and you're especially amongst that cast, you're one of the most reputed musical guys. And so
that's true.
How come you haven't said anything? And so what he said was, and I'm paraphrasing here, is basically, hey man, like, I had a great time. Yeah, it wasn't the best thing, but I did love my time there. I love the people I worked with, so I don't regret it. But now the important thing is, he made a very important point of stating, I had a great whatever it was, like 10 days or like 7 days or like a very, very finite amount of time, right? Which is part of the process of what it goes into making these musicals, like with every movie. Now, when you make one of our, many superhero sci-fi VFX driven movies, it's going to take years for some people and a few days for others, right? So like when Downey comes back, because an editor in post-production of Endgame has the brilliant idea of let's change that last line he says to I am Iron Man. Downey comes back for literally an hour maybe, like months after the fact, and just redoes one line, which then shakes the entire planet because it's the best line you could ever do. But in that same vein, musicals, I think, are getting made more because you don't need that giant cast and that giant crew like when it comes to doing the live production to all be in the same room at the same time, all at 100% on all cylinders at one particular moment, right? You can separate them. And because of that, it's quote unquote easier to handle the production, unlike the production live, which is, I would argue, I think musical productions are the single-handedly the most complicated thing you could do. You have to be a triple threat as a performer, as a singer, and as a dancer. And then as part of a crew, you have to be able to handle all three egos, which is enough work on its own, let alone the technical prowess you need to have to pull off those productions. But so with movies, what I'm getting at is that I think you're seeing more of these musicals because people have realized, oh, wait, we can do this differently. Like, we don't have to do it like how Tom Hooper did Les Mis, which is, put the earpiece in there and like do super extreme close-ups.
Yeah,
nail that.
And he made them do it live,
right?
Which is
great. But I think now people have realized it's not necessary. We can separate this. We can remove the butthole if we choose to. We can do all these things.
Somebody did that.
Yeah,
dude.
Exactly. Case in point, right? So that's what I'm getting at. It's just you're seeing it more now because technology allows us to kind of dilute the process of making the musical. Which is not to say that I'm throwing shade at movies being made now that don't do it, live like Les Mis did. But it's just, I think it's a benefit of technology being what it is, and like you don't need to get everybody together. We can start the movie like vaguely a light version of a Boyhood. Start the movie now, finish it years down the line because you can. But usually theater professionals, and particularly musical theater professionals, are used to the immediacy and the urgency of it, which they don't have. And I think that does seep in a little bit into just the vibe of it. It kind of, I feel like it does show a little bit, like.
Yeah, fair enough. I think you're definitely right about how difficult it is to make, musical theater. And I still think it's underappreciated completely. When it comes to like, like when I saw, I feel like as Indians, it's definitely underappreciated because, like Gene Kelly and all these guys, Fred Astaire from, olden days, those guys could actually sing, dance, and act. They literally were triple threats. And the same thing for people like, say like at the time Guru Dutt and all, like he was or like Vishal Bharadwaj, who does like more than one thing here in India. But in India, they never have the actors sing, right? They make them dance, but they never make them sing, and I've always felt that is kind of shitty. So I kind of respect it a little bit more, and I also respect the fact that when Ryan Gosling and Emma Stone did it in La La Land, they actually did all three things together, and I think it is an art that is being I think it's being reclaimed right now a little bit because of people like Lin-Manuel Miranda of doing such a little more, and people like James Corden, like he's like one of the biggest television hosts in the world, and now he's like admittedly a huge fan where he does Crosswalk the musical and things like that. He's such a big fan, so I feel like it's definitely gonna we're definitely gonna see more because we're seeing more of everything, as you said. I hope
you're right. Like I said, I don't think at the moment the needle is moved, but you're absolutely right. There are a few small handful of players like Lin-Manuel and James Corden that are actively pushing this genre, whatever you want to call it, and I'm all for it. So yes, I would love to see more of the real thing.
Man, I would love. So let's take a quick break. We're going to come back and we're going to talk about some of our favorite musicals and how they've influenced. Well, not really how they've influenced us, but like what are our favorite movies and our stage plays and which musical did Jishnu Guha act in? Find out all this e-news
like this or
after the break.
Beta, did you know 79% of all scientists in NASA are Indian only?
देखो इंडिया में टैक्स सिर्फ मिडिल क्लास भरती है. Everyone is just enjoying free यार.
आजकल के youngsters are only interested in partying and enjoying. उनको देश की पड़ी ही नहीं है.
बेटा तुम बस शादी कर लो, उसके बाद तो you can enjoy life like anything.
I will tell you what this country needs. This country needs 15 years of dictatorship. That is the only way to become a superpower. See the Chinese, how much they've progressed.
सुनो, तुमने ये WhatsApp forward देखा?
So what's common between all of these statements?
They're all absolutely rubbish.
Fake WhatsApp forwards that spread like wildfire.
And statements that defy any logic.
We are here to debunk them all.
Way of family WhatsApp groups, worst nightmare. Where what happens when you read a book.
Basically, we're just a bunch of guys who want to cut through the bullshit of everyone saying this, how it won't be true.
So that the next time someone confidently squeezes out some WhatsApp or Twitter BS, you can look them dead in the eye and go, Uncle, please sit.
So join me, Joel,
And me, Tushar.
every Mondays for a fresh new episode of Uncle, Please Sit.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Geek Fruit Podcast. It's Tejas with Jishnu. We're talking about one of our favorite things ever in the world, which is musical theater and their adaptations to film. Jishnu, I'm going to ask you a question. Which is the first? What's the first
Starlight
musical that
Express.
made you?
Oh
my
that
God,
made
me too.
No, back up. That made me what?
What now?
That's the first one I saw. That made me
Well,
what?
yeah, okay.
Finish your
That
thought.
made you kind of more curious about the genre
Very
and kind of
different
get
question.
you into
Very
it.
different question.
Starlight Express was mine also, by the way, which is weird.
Wait, where did you see it? I feel like we would have brought this up before.
My school did it, and
Oh,
they
okay.
did an amazing job. Actually, because at least I was a kid, I was in like maybe grade 5.
Yeah,
or
that
something,
helped. Me too.
and
I
they,
was super
you know, they
young.
did it on rollerblades,
Yes.
and they,
Yeah.
did it all over
Yeah,
you know, like they went around the audience.
Yep, as
That
you're
was
supposed
amazing.
to, right? I would have been. I
So
think I
good.
must have been younger. I must have been like 6 or 7. I'm lucky that I've been to the West End quite a few times with my family, and so that was the first one I saw.
Nice.
Now, it did make an impression on me because of like the fact that the actors go into the audience and it's very immersive, and plus, big dollop is the fact that I was 6 years old. Because
Nice.
I distinctly remember
same.
asking as soon as the thing ended, because my dad had seen it before, and so he's like, "Hey, let's go see that thing I saw. It's really great."
Nice.
And so I knew he'd seen it, and then the minute it ended, before we even left the theater, I distinctly remember feeling super embarrassed. One of those first few moments when you're a kid and you realized, oh, I just asked a really dumb kid question in public, because I asked really loudly when it ended, "Dad, so when you saw it, did Griswold win or who won?" And then everyone around me was just
Well-
like, "Oh, you stupid kid."
Well, because you are a sci-fi boy and alternate endings is a real thing. It's
So,
fine.
But that, no, I
so
think
that's
the
your
one
first
that made
theater
the
experience.
first big impression on me must have been, God, that's a really good question.
Not counting like Disney movies.
no, I
and,
mean,
like,
you
Little
are talking about a
Mermaid.
live performance, right?
Yeah, about a live performance.
I mean, maybe Lion King, but that was also like a ways away. I've honestly, I'm spoiled because when I was really young, when I was very, very young, before I was old enough to like really appreciate how lucky I was to see these things in person, I got to see a lot of
Yeah.
them. So it might
Nice.
have been like Thoroughly Modern Millie, which I
Nice.
saw in New York, or maybe like I don't know, just one of the sort of off, like not one of the bigger ones, like a Starlight, which is like, you know, it's been around for ages, but I saw like a lot of Andrew Lloyd Webber.
Right.
I saw, you know what it is? Yes, I'll tell you. The one that has No Matter What by Boyzone in it. It's a Jesus musical. It's not
Oh.
Superstar. It's the other
Not
one.
Superstar. Definitely not
Technicolor?
Superstar.
Is it Technicolor?
That's no, it's not Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat.
It's another Jesus one.
yeah.
God damn it.
Jesus is
Wait,
not
I'm
in
gonna look
Joseph
this up.
either.
Jesus gets around a lot, man. He's in a lot of stuff.
He does. Jesus Christ Superstar
Jesus has
was
a great
really, really
publicist.
good.
He has a great agent.
Um,
No matter what,
yeah, I think for
I'm
me, it
looking
was
this
the
up right
first
now.
thing that kind of, the first kind of musical that really made an impact on me was after I saw the movie Rent, and then like I kind of like lost my mind,
Yeah.
and like it, like I was like maybe 18 or something, and I was obviously a fan of musicals and stuff, but I think after watching the movie, I kind of like just fell into a black hole
Sure.
of musical theater, and where I used to just download the OBC recordings of different plays that I
Right.
still haven't watched and probably will never watch. You know,
Right.
things like the one which Adam Pascal did after that. Shit, I can't remember. It was a Disney musical, which Aida, which had Elton John, and again, so I'll probably never watch those,
Yeah.
but I would just try and find bootlegs and then
Sure.
read the script and listen to the thing at the same time. There was a great one with Nathan Lane and Roger Bart, which is called The Frogs. It's just like this Greek musical. It's like just these really, slightly maybe even off Broadway, but then went to Broadway for maybe like all of a year
Right.
and then closed down
Yeah.
because it's like got 2 stars in it. But yeah, definitely Rent. After I saw the movie, I was just like so blown away by what you could do with music because for us musicals was always like
Yeah.
a Roger and
Hammerstein,
Hammerstein
yep,
kind of vibe, but after and Sound of Music probably but like after watching like a proper rock opera like Rent, I was just like, okay, this is what I'm gonna do. This is what I'm gonna do for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
I just want to be on Broadway
Yeah.
and do all of that. Of course, none of those things happened, but my first ever Western experience only happened like maybe a couple of years ago. And I'm yet to go on to Broadway, but I got to see
That was
some
your
of those
first
things
one?
that
I didn't know that.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
Lion
I've
King.
never. I mean, I saw Book of Mormon, and which I think will be made into a movie. I think
It's
they're making
inevitable.
it into
It's
a
gonna
movie.
happen.
Yeah, it's inevitable. That I saw. Yeah, I had to see The Lion King because I was just
Yeah.
like too much emotion, and
Was this-
and I saw Wicked, which is
Was
again,
Lion
like,
King? Did you see it before or after Favreau's Lion King, the musical?
Oh, well before.
Okay.
I
forgot
saw,
when that was.
actually, I went to like Nairobi before Favreau's
right,
thing.
right.
So yeah, so it was definitely before that.
I just looked. I just looked
but
up
yeah.
the guy that I was talking about, the Jesus musical. Does the name?
Which one is that?
It's a Weber. It's another Andrew Lloyd Webber one. Whistle Down the Wind. Have you heard of it? I have no
don't think
idea
I've heard
how.
it.
I have no idea why I went to see it. I mean, it was good. It's an Andrew Lloyd Webber, so like it's quote unquote good. Like all of his ones are good. They're safe. They're very
But
unoffensive.
also,
The-
people give him a lot of shit for being like a weirdo, but like especially Cats and all, dude. But the music of all his shit
Exactly.
is like
That's what I'm getting at.
amazing,
Exactly.
dude.
It's the
Yeah.
stories are some of like most of them are forgettable, but the music is always it does what it's supposed to do.
yeah.
Anyway,
In fact, sorry, just if I may, use this as a segue. So Phantom of the Opera, Phantom of the Opera, obviously super famous Weber musical. And it just came out. So Phantom of the Opera live in, I think in LA or something. They just did a live, so they,
Live taping.
a live recording,
Yeah.
of a live taping
Yeah.
of their show, which is really, really good.
Nice.
But, probably one of the worst movies I've
Oh,
seen
geez, yeah.
of- So because Gerard Butler plays the Phantom,
Oh, wow.
and he's so bad because he can't sing.
That is
He can't sing.
I shit you not. I was just watching. It might have been. Yes, it was. This is wow. Irony. This was this morning on James Corden's YouTube channel. I was watching an interview with him and Ray Romano, and he mentioned,
Okay.
"Hey, so what have you been doing? Like, have you picked up any new hobbies?" And he said, "Well, I've never been a singer, but I've been singing lately." And he's like, "Oh, what do you sing?"
Ray Romano
yeah,
has been
exactly.
singing?
And he's like, "Oh, wow, what do you sing?" He's like, "Well, I know I'm talking to like the musical guy, but I think I found the one place where like it sits in my range, and it's Phantom of the Opera." Because
Music of the
I
night.
think
Let me
people
guess.
have always like associated the Phantom part in Phantom of the Opera as the go-to.
This
Sort of like it's fine. You're wearing a mask. You don't even have to look good.
super baritone.
Just
kind
yeah,
of
you're
thing,
basically talking your way through the song. It's fine. Like
He's not wrong.
Yeah, exactly. Right. That's just like-
That's essentially what Gerard Butler does. But okay, Jishnu, let's talk about some of the adaptations of all these musicals that we've loved so dearly.
Yeah.
What would you say is some of your favorite musical adaptations to film?
Okay.
Yeah, and remember the category. So it has to have come from a theater play.
Right.
So let me start everybody off by talking about your own adaptation of Grease, where Jishnu played Danny Zuko. That's right. Jishnu is a Travolta, and I've seen the footage.
yeah,
It exists.
You and like 3 other people.
You're good. You were good though. You were great.
You were very drunk also. So yeah.
That is the optimal
Which is
way
yeah, like
to
I wish
consume
the
that.
audience was drunk too. Like believe me. But you know what? I'm gonna throw you a
Oh,
curveball.
I was drunk for almost all the musicals I attended. Because the good thing about like the West End is that you can carry a drink inside,
True.
and it's amazing. Yeah. So
I wish I seen more musicals when I was an adult of drinking age. But what was I getting at? Okay, yeah, I'm going to throw you a curveball. I'm going to answer both your questions in one. My
go for
favorite
it.
musical adaptation into a film and a musical that I was in, Hedwig and the Angry Inch.
Angry Inch.
It's
Great.
one of the greatest.
Who did you play in Hedwig?
Hedwig.
You played Hedwig?
Yes, but here's the thing. Here's the
you
kicker.
played
Here's the
Neil Patrick Harris's role. Sorry,
yes,
yeah.
but the kicker is I didn't because we canceled the production a week prior. Have I not mentioned this to you? I feel like we were talking about this.
Maybe that's why I haven't seen the footage of this.
Yes, there's no footage. So we canceled it. Well, okay, let me just set it up for people. It's one of the it's one of the lesser known musicals which kind of got a resurgence a few years ago when Neil Patrick Harris took it on and did it on Broadway. He won a bunch of Tonys, as he always does, as he should.
He's amazing.
And
Yeah.
it's one of my favorite musicals because the songs are just brilliant. Much in the vein of Rent, it's like it is a rock opera, but I think it's lesser like Rent in that. Sorry, it's lesser talky talk songs like Rent is because Rent is
It's more straight up.
songs the whole way through.
It's a pure musical.
Yes, but one could argue this is another evil cousin of the quote unquote pure musical because it's set in a really interesting fashion. It's set inside a gig. It's meant to be performed in a dingy dive bar, which is where it began. Mm-hmm. It was produced off Broadway on these tiny stages, and it's a cast of maybe 6 people at most.
Yeah,
it's literally just the band and the lead singer, and that is it. And it's basically a one-man show. And it's about Hedwig, who is a refugee from East Germany around World War II, who is gay and falls in love with an American GI, and then decides to have surgery to change his gender, and that is his ticket to go into the United States. Problem is that gets botched, and so he's left with a 1 inch angry inch. 1 inch angry inch.
One angry inch. Yes.
But then said GI dumps him, and now he is left to his own devices as a poor, beaten down guy trying to make his way, immigrant in the United States. And that's where the story starts. So the story begins there. And it's about his redemption arc. He's a singer-songwriter. Somehow he met this kid who stole his songs. So there's also this weird angle of like, I'm an artist that has not received my comeuppance. So it's got a whole lot going on for there. But the coolest thing about it, which is what I love, is that it's performed as just a gig. And so it's just one guy, the lead singer, on stage, cross-dressing as this character called Hedwig. And his band is a bunch of immigrants who are on his payroll. So they're a bunch of Eastern European people that barely speak English. And the entire play is just told like how a singer-songwriter like ourselves would tell you a story of this next song is about insert dialogue here.
This next song.
So this next song is about that American GI who I had sex with, and then he left me, and then told me to get a sex change, and I got the sex change, and then my doctor botched it up, and so now I'm here, guys.
And then
here's a song.
He dumped me.
Yeah, and then here's a song.
Yeah.
And so the movie is great because the movie just takes his stories, and it's literally the dialogue. It's the exact same dialogue, almost the exact same dialogue.
I haven't seen the movie.
I cannot recommend it enough, man. It is
nice.
I've seen it more times than I can count, regardless of the fact that I was studying the play. After the fact, I've watched it at least maybe a half dozen times. But so the best part is that when you watch the movie, just know that all the cutscenes that are not on stage of the band performing are just visuals put on top of dialogue that he would be telling you to your face. And so when you see the Broadway musical, you're not watching a musical, quote unquote, like a Rent or any other thing where it's like big set changes and like lights and 1,000 watts of sound behind you. You're just watching a gig where the banter is scripted. And while the banter continues, like it's a freaking emotional roller coaster because the guy's story is tortured as all hell. And then I won't spoil it, but basically by the end of it, he is redeemed somehow through his gig. Basically, the gig is like his therapy, and it's one of 100 gigs he's done. And the point is like, this is my last gig because reasons. And in the movie, you just get to see those reasons portrayed, in cutaways.
I have to check out this. When did this movie come out? Sorry.
It came out, I want to say, early 2000s. It's produced and directed and acted by John Cameron Mitchell, who is the writer, and the backup singer is the principal songwriter. So it's Triple Threat doesn't come close. This man is a bona fide genius, if you ask me, because he did all of the above, plus wrote the damn thing, sang the damn thing, and him and his writing partner wrote every piece of music you hear. And it's literally just one man and his writing partner's baby the whole way
Amazing.
through.
Amazing.
He then does the movie, and that movie goes on and is a cult hit. And then that goes on to be Broadway, which needed Neil
Again,
Patrick Harris's sort of like thappa
kind
of
of-
like, you know,
Yeah.
some stamp
Yes.
of approval, which by all means take it
of
because he's
course.
Neil Patrick Harris. But yeah, man, it's
That's awesome, man. Yeah, that sounds really, really cool.
1998.
that's what I kind of I admired about Rent also. That Rent, they kind of got most of the cast back, except for one role, which is was then given to Rosario Dawson,
Right.
who does amazingly well,
Yeah.
and Tracy Toms, who then went back to Broadway to play the same role that she did in the movie and then go back. And of course, it stars Jesse L. Martin, who we love from The Flash. So it's always weird to see him on The Flash, and it's like, why aren't you like singing to me? Yes.
Speaking of very, very random aside, speaking of Rent cast, I was just rewatching Spidey. I was watching the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies. So I was watching
Right,
Spidey 2, I think it was. No, Spidey 1.
Mhm.
In Spidey 1, when he's going for the wrestling match, right?
Yeah.
And it's like,
Monsa McGraw.
yeah. So one of the girls, you know, he's got these like little harem of women around him. There's like his cheerleaders.
Yeah.
One of them
Yeah.
is Mimi from the original cast.
Impossible.
Yeah,
I will kill myself.
What's her name? I'm just trying
Daphne Rubin Vega.
Let me look this up.
That's the actress's name. Daphne Rubin.
Rubin Vega, Spider-Man.
Is she in Spider-Man? I'll fucking kill myself. No,
No, wait,
come on,
not the original Mimi. She's in. God damn it! She's in the live performance that's been filmed. The final performance of
Oh.
Rent. So she was not from the original
No,
cast.
so the final performance. So there are two things. There's the anniversary performance where they come back, and then the second one, which is filmed, which is the newest, the last cast, the final.
The final cast before they closed it on Broadway. That version.
right,
So maybe
right.
she wasn't the original
That
cast.
version, yeah.
I thought she was the original cast.
She's in Spider-Man.
She's in Spider-Man. She's one of those girls.
What?
And
Crazy.
And you know what I realized, because I recognized her and I know what she looks like because I've seen that DVD a bunch of times. They're wearing like bodysuits because they're dressed like really slutty. So like she's got like massive boobs. I was like, wait, that's not you. You don't look like that at all. I was like, this is.
Oh my god.
I was like, that was like a random piece of trivia that I didn't need to know. I was like, wow, these women aren't actually what they look like. They're wearing like
That
sexed
is
up
crazy.
bodysuits. It was weird. I was like, that took me out of it for a second.
Oh man.
Anyway.
Another one of my absolute favorite musicals, which were, and this has got an interesting lineage. It was first done as a play with one of your favorite actors, I think. Well, basically, it was a John Waters movie, comedy, and then it was made into a musical in the early 2000s, which starred Harvey Firestein, one of your favorite actors.
I love that.
And then was made into a film where Harvey Firestein's role was played by, and he's playing a woman. He's basically playing Edna Turnblad. So there's a movie called Hairspray, and John Travolta plays a mother in that movie, and it's one of my favorite like movies ever because the music is so. Anyway, it's like kind of music that I love, which is like soul and 50s, 60s kind of like R&B. Like at that time, Motown, and has some great 50s rock and roll and stuff like that. And the cast of this film, so it's basically a movie about a girl in the 60s, in 60s Baltimore, who wants to be on this, television show called The Corny Collins Show. And she basically just wants to be a dancer. And because she's kind of like really like overweight, she always feels like people always make fun of her and they think that she can't dance, but she's an amazing dancer. And that's like the outer thing of the show. Obviously the movie is really about, the story is really about like segregation in the 60s and how black people and white people aren't allowed to kind of, talk or mix, or, they have separate, days for them on this show, and they're separated in school, etc. And about how they kind of like lead the charge in Baltimore to kind of, stop segregation. So that's really what the movie is about. But the musical is so funny, and it's amazing. And it stars like, what an amazing cast. Okay, so John Travolta. It's got Zac Efron, who I've always loved, by the way. Zac Efron turned out great, guys. Okay, if you want to know my formal opinion, he's amazing. He's such a sweetheart on Hot Ones with Sean Evans. He's great. He's a total jock bro, but he's like a really sweet guy. I mean, he's really awesome.
Jocks have feelings too.
Jocks have feelings. Jocks are great, and he's turned out to be a great actor with great comedic timing. He's also in the movie is are a few legends. John Travolta. Then there's James Marsden, who we just spoke about recently when we spoke about Sonic.
I don't know he sang.
James Marsden is an amazing singer. Have you seen Enchanted? Also one of my other favorite movies.
I've not.
He's so good in that. Amy Adams,
great
James
things,
Marsden,
right?
superb.
Yeah.
Yeah, very, very good. So yeah, Hairspray, excellent movie. Any other, movie adaptations you want to?
Yeah, I really,
quickly knock
I
off?
really, really enjoyed. I haven't seen the original, but I really enjoyed Into the Woods.
Into the Woods.
That's
so
another.
Nice. Is that an adaptation or is it just? Oh,
Yeah, it was.
It's a Disney movie, right?
It's a Disney movie, but it was on Broadway.
I didn't know there was an
It was a stage
adaptation.
play. And what I really enjoyed about that is that it's one of the few times that, like with what Hedwig did, which is using the film medium to its full potential
Yeah.
with regard to like really sort of extrapolating on whatever the play has, because like it's really something to see the amount of effort that goes into the production value and set design for these things, but then they're also limited. They can only do so much, right? And so I think the fact that it's a story about interweaving different worlds that are so disparate,
Correct.
that's really where film shines, right? Like you can just go from A to B to C to D like super quick, which you can't do on stage. And I thought that was one of the best uses of that. But like,
I mean, they do it in their own way.
they do
but
it in their own way. But like, so for instance, take Rent. When you see the stage production of it, it's pretty insular. There isn't too much that changed. It's very clever. It's very clever.
It's
how
awesome.
But they're basically miming. They're miming like, all right, now I'm in my room. Now I'm in my
I'm on a phone call.
Exactly.
Now,
So
exactly.
it's great.
Yeah.
It's got its own charm to it. But in that vein, the movie didn't have that much. Like for instance, like remember the scene where they sing what's it?
My answer's already yes, but yes.
Living in America.
Huh?
What's the song called?
Living in America.
What's that song? Is that what it's called? What's it called? I forget.
Find
World
My
of Our
Own or
Own.
something. I think. Yeah.
Something of our own, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Like when they cut to now Arizona, it's like, wait, no, this just feels weird.
Yeah.
It's just like, why is this boy no, like the musical is rooted.
Well, where it really kind of works well is in at least in that movie when they do like a song like Santa Fe, which is one of my favorites.
Yeah, I love that song.
They do it in this whole, in the subway.
subway,
the movie's, the movie's so rooted in like, like upper New York.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
and it's
See,
just-
so what I love
so
about
it's kind
Santa
of
Fe,
really-
what I loved about Santa Fe, apart from the song being great, is like in the choreography of that song, it's great because Jesse L. Martin, our homeboy, I just said homeboy, is he's pole dancing in the subway, right? He's basically pole dancing in the subway, and he's using the setting beautifully. But then,
it's so well done.
I also really love that whatever the hell that song is called, the Living in America song. They're not doing anything because then it's cut to pretty boy in a convertible driving through the desert. It's like, well, that says this. The visual doesn't.
I mean, in the
sit
musical,
with the ethos of the musical. Like if it was just a movie,
in the musical,
I'd be fine.
Yeah.
But the point is, the musical is built as a whole. Not only built on characters and songs, but also choreography. And so the choreography and
but
the
then
setting
it makes the bromance so well, like come to a full circle when they meet each other on the terrace.
Yes.
Which is the greatest bromance in that. I mean, I love that movie.
It's a great bromance that pays off. But I'm just saying that like if they're just chosen, like let him drive down the street somewhere else in New York, and it's fine. Like he can still have his driving moment.
It's true.
He didn't need to go to frickin' wherever the hell Breaking Bad was filmed to make this scene happen. You know what I mean? Fine.
Albuquerque.
Yeah, I didn't have to go all the way.
For those of you who don't know the cast of Rent, obviously, just here's a small bit of trivia. In School of Rock, the band that Jack Black gets kicked out of, the lead singer, that's Adam Pascal. He's an amazing guy. And he's in Rent, basically. And he's epic. All right. So I think this musical episode needs a reprise, which we can come back to because there's so much to talk about. There's still Disney musicals to talk about. There's still like straight to movie movie kind of musicals.
I have a suggestion.
Mhm.
Here's a weird one.
Tell it.
We're going to cross streams with your water cartoon and musical and look at TV shows.
Sub-series collab.
TV shows that have had musical episodes.
Done. We have to talk about Scrubs.
We're going to talk
One
about
of my
Dexter's
favorites.
Lab, Opera.
Talk about Dexter's Lab. We got to talk about
Flintstones.
Scrubs. We got to
had
talk
the
about
Beatles episode.
the Flintstones had the Beatles
There was
episode?
maybe it wasn't like as much musical as like the Dexter's episode, but there were a bunch of songs in an episode where they basically they put on Beatles wigs and they sang like "She
nice.
Loves You," yeah, but like they bastardized it.
Oh yes, yeah.
There are a bunch of Hanna-Barbera.
Cool.
There are a bunch of Hanna-Barbera cartoons that have
Because they were all
musical-
produced at the same time the Beatles were like on high.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, we will. Okay, great. We're gonna pause this musical for at the end of Act 1. We will come back, hopefully with some more musical recommendations and the movies that have not watched them or have watched them. Movies like Chicago. I love that, even though maybe didn't deserve the Oscar, but I still love it. We're gonna come back and talk about all of those in our second episode of OST Musicals Reprise. See you later, you nerds.
Entertainment is like food for the brain. It's a window to culture and a great way to understand the world around us. The internet has changed what it means to be an entertainer, creating new storytellers with millions of fans. It has spawned a new breed, the story sellers, those behind the scenes creating the business for this ecosystem. They work with brands, platforms and channels who are keen to capitalize on an audience hungrier than ever for more stories. I'm Vineet Kanabar, and I have a ringside view to how stories are told and sold. On my show, I bring you creators, artists, executives, and marketers for a freewheeling conversation around the business of entertainment. Tune in to Storytellers and Story Sellers for personal stories, analysis, and criticism every Thursdays as I talk to the brightest minds telling or selling great stories today.
Filter coffee is a fascinating beverage. You need to pick the right beans, blend them in the right proportion, roast them to perfection, and slow brew at the right temperature to get the perfect cup. Which is exactly like great conversations as well. You need to track down the most interesting minds, get them into their zone, and settle down for an unhurried, unscripted chat. And coffee for me is always, always, always best enjoyed with friends. I'm Karthik Nagarajan, and do share my table as I meet some of the most interesting people I know and sit them down for a strong cup of coffee and an even stronger conversation. Join me every Wednesday for a freshly brewed episode. This is not frappe. This is the Filter Coffee Podcast.